Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this. I appreciate it. Sorry for the delay because of technical problems. The fighting has been going on now for some 6 weeks. Hundreds, if not thousands of people have been killed on both sides. How's this going to end?
Asterishan Ադրբեջանը պետք է հրաժարվի Ղարաբաղի
Azerbaijan needs to give up on its logic of solving the Karabakh issue by force. The problem emerged or was caused by the fact that Azerbaijan was continuously promoting a logic of military solution to the question, to the issue. And when it became clear for Azerbaijan that it will be unable on its own to promote that logic, what now happened is that it asked Turkey for assistance, which in turn, from Syrian territories under its control, has transported to Azerbaijan thousands of mercenaries who, after which Turkey and Azerbaijan and the mercenaries and the terrorists unleashed a joint attack on Nagorno-Karabakh. I am describing this to make clear how difficult the situation is. Because as we can see, there is not just one entity involved in this process. This complicates the situation a lot more. I think because of all of this, the issue no longer is confined to the logic of the Nagorno-Karabakh issue, because mercenaries are engaged and their presence in the region poses a threat to not only Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia, but also Iran has stated it views it as a threat. Russia has stated it views it as a threat. And allow me to say, in my opinion, a number of recent events happening in Europe and around the world that are at least indirectly linked with what is happening in Nagorno-Karabakh.
You're referring to
and the non-constructive position of Turkey. So the short answer to your question is Azerbaijan needs to give up on its maximalist ambitions and needs to give up on its stated policy of carrying out genocide against the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh.
But again, I mean, this conflict has been going on now for decades. What was the trigger that sparked it at this moment? Was it Turkey? What was it?
Yes,
as I already said in my answer to your previous question, it was indeed Turkey's engagement which caused Azerbaijan, which was because Azerbaijan had understood that it cannot on its own find a military solution to the Karabakh issue. So it asked Turkey for help. And Turkey, in turn, recruited mercenaries and transported them to Azerbaijan.
But I guess my question
having its own political interest.
I'm sorry, what's not clear to me is whether this was a Turkish initiative or an Azerbaijani initiative.
Well, I
think it was a joint initiative. I want to state that now, or in the past, we had indirect evidence and proof of the engagement of mercenaries. We now have concrete evidence. And that evidence is as follows. The Defense Army of Nagorno-Karabakh has already captured 2 mercenaries as prisoner. One of them has testified comprehensively. He said he was living in the Turkish-controlled Syrian territories in a refugee camp. He described how he was recruited. He described where they became engaged. He described how they crossed the border into Turkey through an official checkpoint, but without anyone asking them any questions or checking them. Before crossing the border, all of their passports and documents were taken away from them. Then once inside Turkey, they were taken to some airport, and from that airport, on a Turkish airplane, they were flown into another airport, from which in an Azerbaijani aircraft they were transported to Azerbaijan. This whole time they did not have a single document, and nobody asked them a single question about who they were, where they were going, and so on. So these people transported to Azerbaijan were promised $2,000 a month as mercenaries, and there are thousands of mercenaries like this now taking part in this war against Nagorno-Karabakh. And I think that this situation should become the subject of an international investigation.
And who are these people? I mean, they're Islamists. Who are they?
Իրենք ենթադրաբար մի մասը
Presumably some of them are members of extremist groups. Some of them are population from the Turkish-controlled Syrian territories who were recruited for money.
Tell me, sir, how concerned, I mean, you mentioned this in the beginning, but how concerned are you now that this is going to turn into a much wider regional war with Russia, with the Turks, maybe even with Iran? What are the chances of this thing just exploding right now?
Գիտեք, ես չեմ կարող ճշգրիտ
See, I cannot make a precise prediction. As I said, the Islamic Republic of Iran and Russia have announced that the presence of mercenaries in the region is a threat to their security. Look at what's happening. After the war started in Karabakh, in the North Caucasus, which is the North Caucasus republics of Russia, we heard reports in those areas of Russian law enforcement having neutralized groups, cells of terrorists who had infiltrated from abroad, who had infiltrated from Syria. And it was a clear hint at them being members of these same groups of mercenaries that had infiltrated into Russia. Iran is extremely concerned about this situation.
Պատերազմը միշտ էլ անկանխատեսելիության որոշակի տար պարունակում է
There is some way to predict. It's very hard to predict the course of the war. Nobody can say for sure how far this will go or how far it will not go, what the reach of this war will be. But what is important is this mechanism which I described as proven with specific evidence is a mechanism which is in place, which is working. And this mechanism now could be used in different parts of the world. And that's why I said this is Turkey's policy. And it's the continuation of the policy Turkey is implementing in the Mediterranean Sea or in its relations with Greece and Cyprus, or in Libya, in Syria, in Iraq. You see, it's a totally new mechanism that has been put in place. And this mechanism may be manifested in different places in different ways. It's very hard to tell and predict. So in this sense, I think we have entered a new field of unpredictability. For so long as the international community does not respond very specifically to this behavior by Turkey.
But specifically, what do you think Turkey's trying to do? What's Turkey's aim?
Osmanյան կայսրության վերականգնումը
Reinstate the Ottoman Empire, as strange as it may sound.
So the reports that yesterday you asked Russian President Putin for security assistance as part of your security treaty with Moscow. What do you want from Russia?
Գիտեք, մենք ունենք
You
դաշնակցային
see, we have
հարաբերություններ Ռուսաստանի
a partnership
հետ
relationship with the Russian Federation,
պայմանագիր
and we have a
համագործակցության
treaty
վերաբերյալ
on cooperation,
այդ պայմանագիրը նախատեսում է
and that
անվտանգության
treaty
ընդհանուր մարտահրավերներին
prescribes
ընդհանուր դիմակայում եւ մենք այս
a
ընթացքում
common response
ես
to
այս
the common
ընթացքում
security
մշտապես կապի մեջ
challenges.
եմ եղել
In this
Ռուսաստանի
time, I have
Դաշնության
always been
նախագահ
in
Վլադիմիր
touch
Պուտինի հետ
with
եւ
the
մենք
President of the
անընդհատ
Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, and we have always been consulting, and we are watching the developments. And because the hostilities, the military action has reached the border of Armenia, and there is a threat that the hostilities may pose a direct threat to the territory of the Republic of Armenia. We have launched the procedures stipulated by the treaty so as to continue our consultations for managing any future developments in this situation. But overall, I can tell you that in this situation, in order to support Armenia, Russia is doing whatever is currently possible, and Armenia is generally pleased with how Russia has been honoring its partnership commitments towards Armenia.
As part of employing this mechanism, this treaty mechanism, I mean, could you envision Russia sending troops to the Armenian border? Would that be something that you would want?
Russian troops are already deployed on the Armenian borders, and this is no news. They have always been here. And in the territory of Armenia, Russia has military base number 102. In addition to that military base, as I said already, the borders of Armenia are, including the borders of Armenia with Turkey and Iran, are guarded by the Russian border troops. And currently, the Russian border guards have representatives also along other parts of our border.
Tell me, sir, who is best suited to mediate right now? I mean, the Minsk group hasn't had a lot of success over the years. Who needs to get involved to kind of calm things down?
Գիտեք, իհարկե ԵԱԿ Մինսկի խումբը շարունակում է մնալ
The OSCE Minsk group continues to remain the only international format for resolution of the Nagorno-Karabakh issue. But in practice, Russia is now making the most active mediation efforts as a state. And this is understandable because Russia is directly present in the region.
Is there any
Russia
role?
is a country of this region.
Is there any role that you see that Israel can play in mediating the conflict, given that it has good ties with
Israel
is now very actively engaged in this conflict because Israeli UAVs are actively used in the war against Nagorno-Karabakh, and I think that Israel should think about the following. Mercenaries, Islamist terrorists, and Israel are now on the same side, basically. So Israel should think, is this really a convenient position for Israel?
Mr. Prime Minister, I mean, you recalled your ambassador from Israel for consultations because of this issue, because of the arms sales. What steps are being taken to kind of smooth over tensions with Jerusalem over this? So are there any steps being taken? I mean, are you in consultation, discussion with Israel now about how to smooth things over?
What I tell you is that these consultations are ongoing, and as I said already, the question we have formulated is the one I voiced moments earlier, I want to underline not just for Israel, but for the international community, we need to acknowledge that now in Karabakh, in Artsakh, what is happening is a new type of international engagement being tested. Turkey has in Syria quite ample opportunities to recruit mercenaries. And this was once tried in Libya. Next, it is being tried in Nagorno-Karabakh. And who knows where it will be tried next? Who has any guarantees against not being the next region or the next country to face the same situation? I'm very glad that many countries in the Middle East, including many Arab countries, are making a proper assessment, calling this by its name, understanding what a threat this situation poses to international peace and stability. This is a question that is not any particular state alone. It's a question for the international community as a whole. We see that international security, in the international security system, certain shifts are taking place. And those shifts also contain elements of a hybrid warfare. Engaging in that warfare also mercenaries, and this hybrid warfare can be manifested in different ways. It can be manifested in the ways in which we see in Nagorno-Karabakh, or it can be manifested in ways in which we are seeing in Vienna, or it can be manifested in ways in which we are seeing in Nice, in France, or in Canada. This is a question, and the question is on the table, and this question is seeking a specific answer.
It's no secret that Israel has a very tense, difficult relationship with Turkey. You mentioned that one of the things that Israel should keep in mind is that it's essentially backing Azerbaijan, and in doing so is on the same side of Turkey. When you or your representatives bring this up with Israelis, what do they say? How do they respond to that?
I
heard the last part of your question, so I can tell you that I don't think that I should be disclosing the diplomatic exchanges, but the public question is the one I formulated. Ask that question, please. Through this interview, ask that question and ask Israel to answer publicly.
What will it take for Armenia to return its ambassador to Israel?
This is diplomatic practice. We will see. We want to build the right relationship with all countries. And that question will be properly answered in due time.
Okay, and the last question is, in a conversation that our president, Ruby Rivlin, had with the Armenian president in early October, after you recalled the ambassador, he raised the possibility of Israeli humanitarian aid. Is there anything to that? Is that taking place? Is there anything you would like from Israel?
Yes, Artenasci.
Well, like I said, I think that this is a question that Israel should answer, not for us, but for itself. And all the countries should do the same. When I speak with journalists from the EU, they ask me what should the EU do, or what the EU should do, and I was saying it before, what the EU should do it for itself, not for Armenia. I just ask, I'm asked to evaluate the situation, I evaluate the situation. 10 or 15 days ago, in my interviews, I was saying that if the EU fails to properly evaluate Turkey's conduct in the region, and really broadly in Nagorno-Karabakh, then they will face the consequences in Europe. And we are now seeing what's happening in Europe. I say the same about Israel. I say the same, that Israel should ask itself the question. It is now fighting de facto side by side with mercenaries against Nagorno-Karabakh. Israel should answer that question. Is this a convenient position for Israel? If it is a convenient position, God be with it. But I think that there will be specific consequences there, and you will have to face those consequences. In Europe, what I said happened within a matter of 15 days. In Israel, I don't know. Maybe 15 weeks, maybe 15 days, maybe 15 years. That's not the point. But what the point I am trying to make is that there is a totally new mechanism of a foreign policy implemented by Turkey. And clearly, that mechanism is going to be used in different places. If it is allowed to manifest itself. Today, that possibility is allowed in Nagorno-Karabakh. And we are seeing it now to start to manifest itself in Europe, in America. Who said we will not see its manifestations in Israel? I think we will see. So Israel should think whether this is a convenient position now to be with the mercenaries in the same trenches, on the same side of the trenches, and to have the same target.
But when you say that there could be consequences in 15 days or 15 months or 15 years for Israel, what are you referring to, sir?
I described the new mechanisms of policy used by Turkey when it has the possibility of recruiting mercenaries from its territories under its control in Syria, not unlimited but ample opportunity to recruit these people, plus its imperialistic ambitions. And those ambitions are towards the north, the south, the east, and the west. And we will be seeing manifestations of those ambitions. How come we can see these manifestations in Vienna, in Austria, in France, Canada, but can't see them in Israel? I think we will definitely be seeing those manifestations.
So if I understand you,
and I mean that Israel is contributing to it.
So
to
if I
that time
understand
coming
you correctly,
closer.
if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that the Turks could one day enlist Syrian mercenaries to march on Jerusalem. Is that?
Yes, որևէ կոնկրետ բան նկատի չունեմ։ Ես նկատի ունեմ քաղաքական միջավայրը, քաղաքական մթնոլորտը,
specific. I mean the political environment, the political atmosphere, and the gaps which have emerged in the international security system. And if there are gaps, and if there are corridors, loopholes, somebody will try to pass through them. And this is not necessarily going to happen in only one area or in two areas. There will be traffic in all possible directions.
Okay, and the last question again is just the one I asked previously. Is there anything as far as humanitarian assistance that Israel could give your country right now?
The answer I gave you.
Humanitarian
Humanitarian aid by a country that is selling weapons to mercenaries, which the mercenaries are using to strike the civilian peaceful population. I propose that Israel should send that aid to the mercenaries and to the terrorists as the logical continuation of its activities.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate this.
Yes,